Hey everybody, happy Saturday. Welcome back to Howling Moon Studios and what is going to wind up, I guess, being a special show in a couple ways. So I got a lot of requests to talk about what happened this week. As you know, I wrote an op-ed for Wired where I tried to put in context what I thought the responsibility and culpability of internet platforms was for the insurrection that took place at the Capitol. And you can go to wired.com if you want to read that. It's I wrote it, it just sort of exploded out of me Wednesday night. They published it on Thursday. It's circulated very widely, and so I've really put a lot of thought into what's going on. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a show like normal, except the set list will be very heavily influenced by what happened this week. And then afterwards, I will take some time to talk about this. And I think I'll finish up. I'll log into the chat, and if you want to ask me some questions, you can do that. But what I'm going to do is do maybe 5 or 10 minutes of stream of consciousness of what I think the issues are and how I would recommend all of us think about it. And then if you have some questions, I'll take them over the chat. So I hope that'll be sufficient and helpful and fun. I also want to let you know that tonight at, sometime between 7:30 and 8 o'clock California time, so 10:30 and 11 East Coast time, I will be on CNN talking about the same topic. And then I just want to give you a little advance warning. Monday is our 300th show. So Jason and I we're going to try to celebrate the day. I don't know how different it's going to be, other than it'll probably be longer than normal. And it'll be the 300th show. And neither one of us has ever been involved in 300 shows in a year. And so, it's a pretty big milestone. And so we're going to celebrate it on Monday. Anyway, this is show 298. Here we go. Sometimes I lie awake, I wonder what the world is coming to. It's been a wild ride, now I sense the hills are coming due. Oh, there's trouble in my valley. Oh, there's trouble in my mind. Tell me I'm okay. I need to know what makes life real. What is the essence of my being? I struggle every day to deal with with all the weird stuff that I'm seeing. Oh, there's trouble in my valley. Oh, there's trouble in my mind. Tell me how I'm okay. What is real and what's for show? Won't you tell me it's okay? How am I supposed to know what is real and what's for show? Won't you tell me it's okay? Tell me it's okay. Sometimes I lie awake at night and dream of things that might have been. I wonder why it is someone has to lose so you can win. Oh, there's trouble in my valley. Oh, there's trouble in my mind. Tell me I'm okay. How am I supposed to know what is real and what's for show? Won't you tell me it's okay? How am I supposed to know it's okay. So, you know, we were all hopeful that 2021 was going to be a year where we could relax and everything was going to be better. And that may prove to be true. But man, the first 9 days have certainly broken new ground in some pretty profound ways. This is sort of, it could be a song about Twitter, I guess. Or Facebook. She wrote me a message, paper that was torn. It said, Foxtrot uniform, Charlie, Kilo, Yankee, Oscar uniform. I focused on the message, trembling in my hand. It took me a minute, it took another minute, it took a lot of minutes for me to understand. It means that she don't love me anymore. It means she wants to break my heart and nail it to the floor. But the only thing that hurts me, that breaks my heart in two, I'm pretty sure the man she loves looks a lot like you. I sent her back a question, got a message in return. It said, Foxtrot uniform, Charlie, Kilo, Yankee, Oscar uniform. I stood there in silence with that message in my hand. It took me a minute, it took another minute, it took a lot of minutes for me to understand. She don't love me anymore. It means she wants to break my heart and nail it to the door. But the only thing that hurts me, that breaks my heart in two, I'm pretty sure the man she loves looks a lot like you. I can't believe she loves you after all that we went through. Oh, whiskey tango foxtrot, whiskey tango foxtrot, whiskey tango foxtrot, I owe you. I'm writing you a message not so warm. It says, Foxtrot uniform, Charlie, Kilo, Yankee, Oscar uniform. I hope that it confuses you, messes up your plans. It takes you a minute, a whole lot of minutes, a lifetime of minutes for you to understand. Bands off of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, last forever. They disappear and never be heard from again. Train, Cant Buy A Drill. Well, I've been up all night, baby, leaning on a windowsill. And if I die on top of the hill, well, if I don't make it,
mama flagging down the double E. And don't the sun look good shining down over the sea? And don't my gal look good when she's coming after me? Well, the wintertime is coming. Windows are filled with frost. I tried to tell everybody, but I could not get across. When I wanna be your lover, babe, I don't wanna be your boss. So don't say I didn't warn ya when your train gets lost. Don't say I didn't warn ya when your train gets lost.
Been a tough week that way, right? You know, I mean, we're really close to the absolute worst case outcome I could possibly imagine 4 years ago. Actually, it's worse than that. And it's probably the worst case I've been able to imagine for the last 2 years. And the notion that we actually got here and that, you know, all the evidence that this was going to happen was staring us right in the face and we still ignored it. I mean, that part's just like, I look at that as like, wow. I mean, this is what the fall of ancient Rome must have been like. Thing is, we can come back from it, and I'm quite hopeful we will. But man, we got our work cut out for us. I mean, everything turns on, you know, individual events, right? I mean, we'll talk about this later, but you know, the thing on Wednesday could have been so much worse. And there was an event at the beginning of 1953 that, you know, if it had turned out a little bit worse, maybe the things we're dealing with now would never have happened because the parents of the people doing all this would not have remained in politics.
They made a real big mess. Federal Express when they couldn't stop the engine in time. The air brakes failed, the passengers wailed as they flew off the end of the line. Well, we elected Eisenhower, the rich had a celebration. The Federal Express was the train they took to wax inauguration. The part in Boston running smooth. The Brahmins, they were smiling. But then a broken brake. An hour late, that express left Rhode Island. It raced down to New Haven, then through Manhattan's door. They made up 30 minutes on the way to Baltimore. Harry B., the engineer, said everything was jake. His express could make up lots more time if he didn't touch the brake. They made a real big mess, the Federal Express. They couldn't stop the engine in time. The air brakes failed, the passengers wailed as they flew off the end of the line. Coming in to Washington at 80 miles an hour, the express tried to slow on down as it passed the warning tower. The brakes were gone, the train raced on to an end most surely dead. Horns are blaring, screams and swearing, moments filled with dread. Track 16's at the end of the line, the waiting room behind. The express blasted right on in through marble, oak, and pine. Trash and walls, a wrecking ball with no safe place to go. The floor collapsed and the engine flopped to the baggage room below. Luck can come from nowhere magically. Hundreds got away that day scot-free. They made a real big mess, the Federal Express. They couldn't stop the engine in time. The air brakes failed, the passengers wailed as they flew off the end of the line. Nobody died on the Federal Express. I know that's hard to believe. Way back then, rich Bostonians had aces up their sleeve. Even the locomotive was safe. They lived to hear them say, when it absolutely positively has to get there, absolutely positively has to get there, absolutely positively has to get there. FedEx is the way.
So I've gotten some feedback that the fact that we've recorded some shows recently is an issue for some of you, and I totally appreciate that. A couple things to think about that. We've done this now 298 consecutive days, and so there are a couple things going on. One is we're frankly exhausted, and two, because of the holidays and because of some family things going on, it's some people have needed some time off. And then the third thing is that it's not safe with Chloe 5 months pregnant for the quartet to get together more than once a week. But it seems like we can record 2 shows, and if we do that, then you get 2 quartet shows, which strikes me as being better. The other thing that's a problem is that you have to do the quartet outdoors, and by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's frankly too cold to play. So we're having to do it earlier in the day. So, I expect we're going to be doing this for a lot longer. When it warms up again, you're going to see a lot more live shows. But when we're in this situation right now where we're confined and all, I think we're doing basically half the shows are live. And, my shows, usually one of Jason's, one of the duo shows, those are all live. And then sometimes other things are live. But again, it's we're doing our best, okay? And we hope that you'll be understanding of the fact that there are some limitations to what we can do. So this is a song that I wrote about, could we get rid of all the right-wing fascist types in our society? And we're about to find out if we have the courage to do that. Although it looks like we may do this using a different form of transit than the one I imagined. In my dreams I'm gonna build a giant ocean liner. In my dreams it will be like Titanic, only finer. In my dreams the passengers will come from cable news and politics, blowhards and hypocrites divide the country with their shticks. The network and the wingnuts stoke anger and resentment, while 5 white souls in Washington roll back the Enlightenment. The speaker thinks it's peachy, the turtle thinks it's hot. They both claim to be Lincoln, but honest Abe, they're not. Whoa, 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 whoa. Captain is that guy whose cruise ship ran aground. They say he's reborn,
but is nowhere to be found. I'll send the apprentice and the model, Tweedledum and Tweedledee, and their fashion-selling daughter, and her preppy out to sea, and all the angry white folks with their statues and their swastikas, gun nuts and Cybertron, putting down the rest of us. Whoa, 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 whoa. The lookout is that guy from the Exxon Valdez. He'll be 3 sheets to the wind, even when there is no breeze. In my dreams I'm gonna build a maritime disaster. In my dreams it will sink like Titanic, only faster. In my dreams they give out prizes for getting rid of bad guys, but my ship's not big enough for all the assholes and their big lies. In my dreams I've got a second ship to carry all the overflow, several others in construction, 'cause the asshole population grows. Yes, it grows. In my dreams, 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 in my dreams.
There's this thing going on in Silicon Valley which gives me great hope. The employees at Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, have formed a union, and it's one of these, I forget the technical term for it, but it's like a union which is not actually there to negotiate with management, but rather initially just to organize the employees for the purposes of negotiating. So they have all the National Labor Relations Board protections, but they're not actually negotiating yet. And then I think it's really, really important to have unions in the tech industry, because the only people who have any power over the titans who run those companies are the engineers who work on the products. And so if they unionize, there's a real chance of creating a countervailing force. And so I'm very hopeful about this and want to help the people out who are doing that if I can. Anyway, this is a song about an earlier generation of that needed unions.
Some people say a man is made out of mud, a poor man's made muscle and blood, muscle and blood, skin and bone, a mind that's weak but a back that's strong. You load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I was born one morning, the sun didn't shine. Picked up my shovel and went to the mine. Loaded 16 tons of number 9 coal. The straw boss said, well, bless my soul, you load 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I was born one morning, drizzling rain, fighting and trouble for my middle name. Raised in a cane brush and old mama hound. No high-toned boss gonna push me around. You load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older, deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. If you see me a-comin', you better step aside. A lot of men did, a lot of men died, with one fist of iron, another of steel. The right one don't get you, then the left one will. I've got 16 tons, one of you again. Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I said I owe my soul to the company store. Yes, I owe my soul to the company store. I mean, in many ways, you know, there's two classes of people in Silicon Valley, right? There, the engineers who work at the tech companies who are pampered and very well paid, and then there are all of the contractors and gig workers, and they're really screwed. And you know, in California, those Uber and Lyft and DoorDash spent over $200 million to pass a referendum that would effectively make all of those employees into sharecroppers, which, and I mean, it's just really cynical thing, and they spent so much money they got people to go along with it, which is really sad. But we'll keep fighting because we can beat these guys. And that's the thing, you know, you think, well, how does this relate to everything else? It turns out all these things they all come from the same source, right? It's all about the concentration of economic power. And the fact that when you concentrate economic power, you wind up with authoritarian cultures in these companies. And once you get to an authoritarian business culture, the pressure on government to adopt authoritarian political models becomes really intense. And that's what happened. And, you know, we waited a long time to fight it, but we're getting our act together, and hopefully we'll fix it. I mean, we came really close Wednesday to having just a complete bloodbath, and that's why I'm going to sing this song. Through the noise, bodies broken like fragile toys. Shooters, another day, while politicians say it's time to pray. Every time the same old story, images both sad and gory. Bullets through another day, while politicians say it's time to pray. Thoughts and prayers are all you have. Stay away from me. Stay away from me. Love their guns. Courtrooms gats have mostly won. 90 people killed each day, while politicians say it's time to pray. We're only safe when packing heat. Schools and churches on the street, the handiwork of the NRA. Politicians say it's time to pray. for a Columbine, and every time went on. The time has come. The time has come. Time has come to stand and fight. Not getting shot is a human right. Join us and make a stand. Stand proud and hold my hand. Together we can make a stand, you and me. Say everything can't be replaced, yet every distance is not near. So I remember every face of every man who put me. Come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, I shall be released. Say every man needs protection. Say that every man must fall. Yet I swear I see my reflection somewhere so high above this wall. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. Yonder stands a miner's lonely crowd, a man who swears he's not to blame. All day long I hear him shouting so loud, calling out that he's been framed. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, I shall be released. Any way now, I shall be nobody grazes. Lunatics and animals out of their cages. Alarm bells ringing, who knows where. Nobody listens, nobody cares. Rome burns, Rome burns, Rome burns. Hurricane gas tearing up my street. Flood waters everywhere, 3 feet deep. Better do something before we all die. Naked men say our debt is too high. Rome burns, Rome burns, Rome burns. Every cup hopes to be a fireman. Till the fire starts, it's all a game. Now the flames are everywhere. We can only sit and stare and watch our sweetest dream go up in smoke. Here, fire, there, fire blazing away. Clouds of smoke choke the folk who stop to pray. We better do something before we all die. Naked men say tax rates are too high. Rome burns, Rome burns, Rome burns. Don't know how I did that. So last night was a really cool night for Ann and me. My mentor in my activism, a guy named Clarence Jones. I've talked about him before. He's a legend of the civil rights movement because he was Martin Luther King's attorney. He's the man who smuggled the letter out of Birmingham jail. He wrote speeches for Martin Luther King, including the portion of the I Have a Dream speech that was new for the Lincoln Memorial. And, you know, Clarence was somebody I got to know years ago when he was involved with the Martin Luther King Foundation. And I happened to run into him in a MSNBC green room at the beginning of 2018 when I was really, you know, trying to figure out how to make my activism successful. And Clarence took me under his wing, which was, you know, I mean, just an amazing thing. And taught me a million things. Anyway, yesterday was his 90th birthday. And Ann and I were invited to a Zoom birthday, which was incredible. Because Clarence, when you're 90 years old and you're an icon of the civil rights movement, you know some really interesting people. And honest to God, I mean, the people who are on this thing, Jeffrey Sellers, who was the producer of Hamilton, got the lead players from Hamilton to record in the room where it happened, just for Clarence for this thing, you know, with a greeting and all that. That was pretty damn cool. And B.B. Winans did something just epic, and like the Kronos Quartet wrote a piece of music just for Clarence, and you know, it was just like, you know, Andrew Young was on there, and Al Sharpton, and Latasha Brown from Black Votes Matter, and a gazillion other people. And, you know, it's when you see somebody like that who's persisted and, you know, not been beaten down despite, you know, 90 years of discrimination,
it's enough to remind you, just one, don't complain, and two, get to work. And that was what I took out of the thing. And so Clarence is just a very special person. Anyway, right now our lives are dominated by people who are, special only in kind of evil ways. And this is a song about that.
You walk in the room, your pencil in your hand, see somebody naked, you say, who is that man? You try so hard, but you don't understand what you gonna say when you get home. If something is happening here, you don't know what it is. Jones. You raise up your head, ask, is this where it is? Somebody points to you and says it's his, and you say, well, what's mine? Someone else's. Well, where what is? And you say, oh my God, am I here all alone? Something is happening and you don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones? You hand in your ticket to go see the geek, who immediately walks up to you when he hears you speak, says, how does it feel to be such a freak? You say, impossible, as he hands you a bone. Something is happening here, you don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones? You have many contacts among the lumberjacks. Attacks your imagination. Nobody has any respect. Anyway, you already expect to give a check to some tax-deductible charity organization. You've been with professors, they all lack your looks. With great lawyers you have discussed lepers and crooks. You've been through all of F. Scott Fitzgerald's books. You're very well read, it's well known. If something is happening here, you don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones? You see the one-eyed midget shouting the word now. You say, for what reason? And he says, how? You ask, what does this mean? And he screams back, you're a cow. Give me some milk or else go home. Something is happening here and you don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones? You walk in the room like a camel, then you frown, with your eyes in your pocket, your nose on the ground. There ought to be a law against you coming around. You should be meant to be wearing a telephone. Something is happening and you don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones?
Imagine if it were, instead of Mr. Jones, Mr. Cruz, Senator Cruz, or Senator Hawley. Those guys both I mean, you go through this thing and you think it's written about them. At least I do.
Someone told me long ago, there's a calm before the storm. I know it's been coming for some time. When it's over, so they say, it'll rain a sunny day. I know, shining down like water. I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? Coming down on a sunny day. Yesterdays and days before, sun is cold and rain is hard. I know, been that way for all my time. Till forever on it goes, to the circle fast and slow. I know, it can't stop, I wonder. I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? Coming down on a sunny day. I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? Coming down on a sunny day. The pulse of drum beats drifting on the wind, growing louder by the day. Warning calls from distant lands, we don't hear what they say. Stop the tune, put your life on hold, hug your kids, do as you're told. Empty streets where gridlock used to rule, sirens shout their harsh refrain. Old town chills at 7 p.m. Each day feels the same, but it's a different world, it's a different game. It's not too soon place the blame. It didn't have to happen. We could have been prepared. Many fewer people might have died. But we're stuck with Dr. Evil, and every word's a lie. When the final toll comes in, we'll all know why. We'll all know why. When the final toll comes in, we'll all know why. Just beginning, but this much I know. If there's to be a happy ending, we'll have to write one on our own, on our own, on our own. It didn't have to happen. We could have been prepared. Many people might have died, but we're stuck with Dr. Evil, and every word's a lie. When the final toll comes in, we'll all know why. We'll all know why. When the final toll comes in, we'll all know why.
I think when I wrote that song, it's possible nobody died yet, and now we're at what, 370,000? Unbelievable. Actually, it's completely believable. That's the problem. So this is a song from another era, just as a reminder of the fact that, you know, we've had tough times before. And really brave people stood up and did something about it. A lot of very brave black people stood up and did something about it. I mean, there were other people too, but it's really the courage of black people in the late 60s was truly amazing. Really, hell, courage of black people since 1619 has been amazing. Come on, all you big strong men, Uncle Sam needs your help again. Got himself in Pebble Jam, way down yonder in Vietnam. Put down your books, pick up a gun, gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7, open up pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Come on, generals, let's move fast. Your one big chance has come at last. Gotta go out, get those reds, 'cause the only good commie is the one that's dead. You know the peace can only be won. We blow 'em all to kingdom come. And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7, open up early gates. Well, it ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Come on, Wall Street, don't move slow. One man's war is oh, go, go. There's plenty good money to be made. Supplying the army with the tools of the trade. Just hope and pray. Drop the bomb,
drop it on the Viet Cong. And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7, open up early gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Come on, mothers, throughout the land, pack your boys off to Vietnam. Come on, fathers, don't hesitate. Send your boys off before it's too late. Be the first one on your block. Have your boy come home in a box. And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7, open up early gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. I think one of the things we gotta internalize is that if we want to have any impact on the world, we're gonna have to get involved. Come gather around people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown. Accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, you'd better start swimming or you sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changin'. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. Don't speak too soon, 'cause the wheels didn't spin. There's no telling who that it's naming, for the losing now, be later to win. For the times they are a-changin'. Come senators and congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall, for he who gets hurt will be he who has stalled. There's a battle outside and it's raging. It'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changin'. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters beyond your command. The old road is rapidly aging, so get off of the new one if you can lend a hand, for the times they are a-changing. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading. The first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changing. For the times they are a-changing. For the times they are a-changing. Sometimes I think that the people who hate democracy just listen to the wrong kind of music. I keep wondering what would happen if we could get them to listen to our kind of music and internalize it. And then every once in a while I find there's somebody who does listen to our music but takes the wrong message away from it. And that's really disheartening. But this next one is really clear about where it stands, and I think this is the perfect song for this moment in time. So I'm going to finish up the musical portion of today's program with this one right here. Want a revolution? Well, you know, It's evolution. Well, you know, we all want to change the world. When you talk about destruction, don't you know that you can count me out? It's gonna be, well, alright. It's gonna be, well, alright. You know it's gonna be, well, alright. You say you got a real solution. Well, you know, we all wanna see the fun. You ask me for a contribution. Well, you know, we're all doing what we can. If you want money for people with minds that hate, all I can tell you is, brother, you have to wait. It's gonna be, well, alright. You know it's gonna be, alright. You know it's gonna be, well, alright. You say you changed the Constitution. Well, you know, we all want to change your head. You tell me it's the institution. Well, you know, we better free your mind instead. If you go carrying pictures of Chairman Don, you're not gonna make it with anyone anyhow. It's gonna be, well, alright. You know it's gonna be, well, alright. You know it's gonna be, well, alright. Well, alright. Well, alright. Well, alright. Well, alright.
Well, all right. So I'm going to open up the chat. If you guys want to, put up some questions and things that, you're curious about. Let me tell you what I think has been going down, okay? So this is a really busy week. On Wednesday, Trump held a rally, told everybody to go to the U.S. Capitol. And Rudy and Don Jr. and others and a lot of people online were suggesting that, they had to be strong, they had to act aggressively and do things that, would assure that Trump remained president, notwithstanding the fact that that very day you had the vice president and both houses of Congress, essentially the first three slots in the chain of succession were all in the Capitol at once. And these people were going there with threatening things in mind. And initially they were all gathered around the Capitol building. And then something happened, and they rushed the place. And the people who went in, it appears, fell into three basic groups. There were a lot of people who were just, MAGA folks who, I think of them as being, they've been absorbed into the QAnon cult and the MAGA cult. And, they have this belief in Trump that's been drilled into them on social media and in some gatherings with like-minded people, and obviously also on Fox and OAN and Newsmax. And, they were there, they're not warlike people. They were just there because that was the thing you did if you were in Washington, D.C. for this thing, and they kind of went along with the crowd. Then there was a set of people who I would describe as being, having something more in mind than just keeping Trump president. They really want to bring the system down. And, so they have sort of an anarchical element to them. And then there was a third group, which was smaller than the other two. But the third group was really, a combination of ex-military, off-duty cops, people who had been trained in warfare. And some of them had brought zip ties for taking hostages. They brought weapons. And those people were incredibly well coordinated, and they knew what they were doing, and they knew where to go, which is, I used to work for a congressman, and I can just tell you the Capitol is a really confusing place, and finding your way around is really hard to do. But they knew. And the other thing that went on is that the police, the Capitol Police who were guarding the place, were effectively understaffed relative to the size of the crowd. But worse than that, some of the people in the Capitol Police were clearly very sympathetic with it, because not only did they let the people in, they told them where to go. And so that's the setup. You've got all of Congress and the vice president in there. And there were people who went in there with the clear goal of not just, there were some people who just wanted to smoke weed someplace. There were people who peed on the walls or pooped on the floor. But there were people who were looking to take hostages and hurt people. And by, I think, pure chance, they didn't get that opportunity. But it was really close. And 5 people at a minimum are dead from this. And, the key thing is the President of the United States has for at least 2 months been openly calling for, since the election, he's been openly calling for a rebellion against the Electoral College vote process, and talking about how, it was a landslide in his favor and all that kind of stuff. And so that's the setup, right? And all this took place in plain sight. And somehow, either the Capitol Police and the FBI missed all this stuff in plain sight, or more credibly, they saw it and just chose not to act on it. Almost certainly out of either sympathy for the ideas, or maybe, because they have a view that white people aren't dangerous. But if you watch those films, it's incredibly obvious that the people inside the Capitol, the people who were doing the actual insurrection, had no fear of the police at all. Right? They were extremely confident that nothing was going to go wrong. So that's the setup. So the President of the United States calls for an open insurrection, as do a whole bunch of enablers. So think of Ted Cruz, think of Hawley, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and a whole I want to say that initially it was 140 members of the House of Representatives. In the end, it was 60. Originally, it was going to be, I think, 13 members of the Senate. In the end, it was 6, who even, as this was beginning, these people were still actively supporting this thing. And I think they were expecting to be welcomed and to have people go along with it. So, in the end, while an enormous amount of damage was done, and people occupied the Speaker of the House's office, and they did a tremendous amount of damage in the place, and 5 people were killed. They didn't actually get to take any hostages, and they didn't kill any members of Congress or the Vice President, even though there were some people who seemed to think that that was their goal. And so the question is, what are you supposed to do about it? And this was a huge issue for Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Parler, Gab, and other internet platforms, because this whole thing was organized on internet platforms and really openly. And they were accessories to an insurrection and to the death of 5 people. And so the question was, what were they going to do about it? And what they chose to do about it was, in the end, initially they went kind of slowly. Twitter initially suspended Trump for a day until he took down that awful video he put up after, the thing was done. Facebook suspended him until January 20th. But then yesterday, the pressure got to be too great. And so Twitter banned Trump for life. And that started dominoes falling. And a bunch of things happened. Bannon lost his show on YouTube. Apple gave Parler 24 hours to implement a scalable moderation plan, which was not something they could do. Otherwise, they'd be removed from the App Store. Google waited about 12 hours and then just removed them from the App Store. And essentially everybody blocked first Trump and then all of the, some of Trump's enablers and his staff and his campaign and all the things. Trump tried to go to all these other accounts to continue tweeting, and they just, play whack-a-mole and shut them all down. And so there's been a big, brouhaha. Was this a First Amendment problem? And, was this a mistake? And the point I would make here is, on the First Amendment doesn't actually apply. I mean, Twitter and Facebook and Google are private corporations, and First Amendment only restricts the government's ability to limit free speech. It doesn't do that for corporations. I mean, obviously newspapers and television have been able to limit people's speech from the beginning of time, and there's nothing wrong with Twitter and Facebook and all taking Trump down. In fact, I would argue that what they did was no better than, Betsy DeVos and Elaine Chao resigning from the cabinet with 12 or 13 days to go. It's like, you got to be kidding. This was literally the bare minimum, and it really doesn't mean anything. They're essentially going to have a different environment in 2 weeks, and the economics of having Trump on there just aren't going to be as good, and the political fallout is just staggering. But that's not all that's going on here. The President of the United States incited an insurrection against the Congress of the United States. Well, in the original framing of the Constitution, the Congress was supposed to be the preeminent part of the government, and the House of Representatives in particular, which is where they, the House and Senate, when they meet in a combined thing. They meet in the House because it's the only one that's big enough. And so the question is, what are you going to do about that? Because members of Congress have explained to me there is literally no greater crime a president can commit than insurrection against another branch of government. So they're really compelled to force him out. And the initial thing was, you could resign, you could do 25th Amendment, or we're going to impeach you again. And you say to yourself, well, he's going to be out of office in 11 days. The problem with that is that the problem doesn't go away when he stops being president. I mean, this is the kind of situation where people are, when would-be dictators are defeated, they're forced to leave the country. They lose all of their privileges. And I think that's really what has to happen here. And not just Trump, not just the Trump family, but all the enablers. All the people who are trying to break our government, all the people who are trying to essentially undermine democracy. And that's the debate we're going to have this week. And the House of Representatives on Monday is going to take this up. The only reason they didn't do it over the weekend is it was blocked by Kevin McCarthy, the Republican minority leader. And, it'll be very quick because, the evidence was on television. They don't need to do any investigation. Everybody saw it. It's obviously insurrection. I mean, it's literally the textbook definition of insurrection. It's literally the worst kind. It's against, it's the president against the House of Representatives and the Senate. And frankly, the vice president, because they were threatening him too. And, Mitch McConnell may not bring it before the Senate. But here's what's interesting. They can keep doing this after January 20th. And they should. And the reason they should is because if they impeach him again and then they pass a second thing, they can take away all the rights and privileges of a former president from Trump. So he loses his Secret Service coverage, he loses the travel budget, he loses all of those perks that come with the job. And on top of that, you can ban him from ever running for office again in the United States or engaging in the political process again. And I think that's actually really, really important. And again, I think that the deal they cut with him has to be that he has to, he can't be part of this. Somebody asked me on BBC last night, did I think Trump would form his own social media thing? And I wasn't expecting the question. I hadn't really thought it through. But now that I've thought about it, my reaction is that, we really want him out of our community entirely. And we want all the people around him out. I mean, what these people did was the greatest offense you can commit as a public servant, right? Which is to betray your country and betray the people who elected you. And this is a real test. It's a huge test. But what's interesting about it is that because it's textbook insurrection, Republicans are going to have to make a choice which side they're on. And electoral survival may drive enough of them to be patriots that you can get a 2/3 majority. I don't think that's out of the question. And a lot of that comes from us keeping pressure up. Getting on social media, howling, calling Ted Cruz's office, calling Hawley's office, but especially calling, Chuck Schumer's office and just saying, you got to go all the way with this thing. I don't think there's any doubt that the House is going to do it, but I worry about how far it'll go past that. So I'm going to see if you guys have any questions here. I haven't been following along, so I've got to scroll all the way down to the bottom. Okay, here we go. Actually, I'm not even sure which way this is loading. Are they in reverse count? No, that's an hour ago. Okay, these are getting more recent. This is tricky. All these messages say an hour ago. So I'm just going to keep scrolling down because there must be more below. Here we go, more recent ones. Do I think social media platforms realized early on that by using algorithms that choose topics that would steal attention, that would have a negative social impact that caused strife and division? So here's the thing. The way that Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, Instagram are architected, they are designed to capture and hold attention. And if you think about it, that causes them to want to gather as much data about each user as possible. They want to use surveillance to create a data voodoo doll for each person that is a digital representation of your whole life. And here's what they have on you. Whether you're a user of the product or not, they know this about you. They know everything that you do on their platforms, plus everything you do on the web. So imagine all your search history, every app you use, and in some cases, they'll even know what you did on the app. So Google, if you have an Android phone, they literally know absolutely everything you did on the phone. So they know where you go. It's easy to buy location data, but if it's Google, they have it just because they control Android phones. And they have all your app usage and all that. Obviously, if you use Gmail or Microsoft's email systems or Google's application suite or Microsoft's application suite, they've reserved the right to gather information about you from the messages and the files that you have on there. So they're really highly invasive. But it's not just that. They go into the real world. So everything that you do financially, whether it's using a credit card or getting paid or borrowing money, all of that's available. They can buy all that, get your whole credit history and everything that you do. They can do the same thing for your medical tests and your prescriptions. So, they can't actually get what happens inside the hospital, but it doesn't matter. If they know what tests you're taking and what the outcomes are, and they know what drugs you're getting, they know your medical history. So they've got all that. Any apps you use on computers, almost all that data is for sale. So, if you're a woman and you have an app for monitoring your period, everybody who has those apps sells all that data. And now you get all these smart devices. So think about Alexa or Ring doorbells or Fitbits or Strava or any of those kinds of things. All that data that's all available. And so they get this really high resolution thing. And with that, they want to command your attention. And the way they do that is essentially, they don't want to see the you that you take out in public that looks like everybody else. They want to provoke you emotionally and see what you're like underneath, the real you. because that's where the real economic value is. So they want to provoke your emotions. How do they do that? Well, there are a lot of ways you do it. Some people are provoked by seeing pictures of puppies. Me, that woman who had the rescue beaver, I mean, that one, she completely had me. You know, corgis, love corgis. You know, those sort of things me. But for most people, hate speech, disinformation, and conspiracy theories are the most effective way to provoke them. Why? Not because you like that stuff, but because it triggers flight or fight. You feel like you have to pay attention. And so, you know, they have tried to make everybody think that hate speech, disinformation, and conspiracy theories are incidental to the business and an unfortunate thing, and they'll use AI to moderate it away. But that's nonsense. Those things are the lubricant for the business model. And it's not like they look for it. It's just that the algorithms are tuned to, for each person, to find what you react to and give you more of that. And the same thing works with the recommendation engine. So if you are curious about anti-vax, they're going to recommend anti-vax groups to you. And once they get you into one conspiracy theory, it turns out that the greatest indicator of susceptibility to conspiracy theories is interest in another conspiracy theory. And so they play all this. So they know. But in their head, they don't think it matters. And it's not because they're bad people so much as because they look at this and they go, well, you know, what's the harm, right? And you're looking at the harm. I mean, you're looking at those people who attacked the Capitol. That's what the harm is. You're taking away people's autonomy, their self-determination, because you're effectively making it possible either for others or yourself being the platform, to manipulate people's behavior. That's incredibly dangerous. And you know, it's tricky. So Emily Brister wants to know what kind of regulation should we have. And Emily, I know Emily reads a lot of stuff I have on the internet, so I think she actually knows the answer, but it's a good question for everybody. I think regulation of the internet really needs to focus in at least 3 areas. We need to think about safety, privacy, and competition. Those are the core things for everything. And frankly, I think you need all 3 of those things relative to all technology products, not just internet products. So when I say safety, what I'm really saying here is uniquely among all engineering disciplines, computer engineers and software engineers are not held liable for harms that they cause. So they have no incentive to anticipate harms or mitigate them in development. So they just ship products. They ship what they call a minimum viable product. And they let the quality assurance be done by the people who use the product or people who are around those people. And their whole viewpoint is, well, it's, you know, it's the fault of the user or the problem of the user if something goes wrong. And so if you look around, it's not just Facebook and Twitter and YouTube that are dangerous, but Ring doorbells are dangerous because they result in a level of paranoia that gets the police to come and essentially interact with innocent people, often black people, and to hurt them. And, you know, things like Alexa, you know, there have been issues with people listening to Alexa audio, you know, employees and contractors. And with things like Nest baby monitors, they're easily hackable. And so there are all these issues with these products. And if you sit there and think about smart TVs, they're in really intimate places in your home. And so a lot of bad things can happen. This is why I don't use any Google products, why we don't have any smart devices in the house. Or if we have a smart device, we have the smart part disabled. And because we do not want that data getting out. And, you know, so safety is, there's this law called Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which was created in 1996 to essentially allow internet platforms to moderate bad behavior and get it off the platform without being sued for doing that. The problem is the courts have interpreted as blanket immunity, which has encouraged the platforms to literally do no moderation at all and just allow lots of bad stuff to happen. So they view it like if a third party does it, that's just not their problem. And they don't associate what they do with algorithms to be their problem either, even though it's a business choice. And so when I talk about safety, what I'm really saying here is I think every engineer must be personally liable. Executives must be personally liable for any harm that occurs from products that they create. That's true in the building trades. I mean, if you're a contractor or you're an architect or an engineer and something goes wrong, you can be personally liable. In the pharmaceutical industry, the alternative would be to do an FDA and say, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to spend 10 years and prove the thing's not harmful. That seems to me to be more complicated than it needs to be. I think it's just enough to make the people individually responsible. But the third thing to remember is what we did with the chemical industry. Because we said chemicals are really important, but these guys are pouring mercury into fresh water. They're spewing toxic fumes in the atmosphere. They have to do two things. They have to change their business model so they do less harm, and they have to clean up the mess. So I think we're going to, those are three core industries: building trades, pharmaceuticals, chemicals. We found a way to make them coexist with society, and we now have to do that with technology. And, so that's safety. It's a lot of things. People ask, do you want to get rid of 230? You want to amend it? I favor amending it, but, I don't know how that's going to come down. I'm not sure that my voice is going to be heard. Secondary is privacy. I believe that your personal data is like an extension of your body. And personally, I'd like to ban the entire data market. I don't want people to be able to use data without my explicit permission. They certainly can't own it. So Apple on the iPhone, iOS 14, is about to implement something called opt-in, which is exactly the right model. Everybody who wants to use your data is going to have to ask your permission. And what's weird is that's a company doing that. And it'll affect 48% of the people in the United States because that's Apple's market share. And it's yet another really compelling reason to use an iPhone. I mean, using an Android at this point literally is insane. I mean, it's just like you're not only exposing yourself, you're exposing everybody you know. And it's, in my opinion, it's selfish to use an Android. And you say, well, iPhones are too expensive. And I'm going, well, hang on just a sec. It does cost more cash up front, but the damage being done by all this data circulating, particularly in the hands of Google and Facebook, is so extreme. What price would you pay to not have gone through what we went through this week? What price would you pay not to have to go through Trump? Because those are all costs of this model. I got asked by, BBC yesterday, well, do you want to give, we had this rare opportunity to look inside the head of a president. I'm going, but look at what the cost was. I just think it was too high. Competition's the third thing. That's antitrust. We're in really good shape on that. Congress is all over it. But better yet, there's a very good Department of Justice case initiated by the Trump administration. There's a very good, that's against Google, an FTC case against Facebook, also well constructed. And even more important, there are at least 3 and maybe 4 state AG cases of multiple states that are, some for Facebook, some for Google, and one of them for both. And they have real teeth in them. The Texas AG case, and the Texas AG is a horrible guy, but their case, which is against Google, is for price fixing with Facebook. And the interesting thing about price fixing is you don't have to prove harm. Price fixing is one of those things that if you do it, it's a crime. And when I say crime, they can charge them on a felony count, which means that the executives would go to jail if they're convicted. And that would be a pretty important thing. There's also a felony opportunity in a fourth area, which is securities law, because both Facebook and Google and everybody else in the ad network business overstates their user counts, they overstate their ad views. And people think, well, the advertisers don't mind. I go, yeah, but in securities law, the investors are harmed by this too. And they should care. And as a consequence, it's a revenue recognition problem. And that could also be criminal. And I think it's important to bring criminal cases against these people because they have really, really hurt people. So Julia Postel wants to know 25th Amendment or not. Again, my view on this thing is we got to get rid of the guy. I'd like to get rid of him in a way where he really has to go. It doesn't look like 25th Amendment is going to happen because, for whatever reason, Pence is not there. Again, the critical thing in my mind is this is not just about getting him out of the presidency. You have to get all of him and his family and the enablers out of government and, frankly, out of the United States. And I'd love to see that. Somebody's asking, is there going to be a special poster to commemorate the 300th show? That's a really good idea. There isn't one yet, but I'll see if we can get one done. So Lawrence Summers says, have we seen all the quarantine posters on the Moonalice page? Weirdly, I don't know if they're all up on moonaliceposters.com yet or not, but I think we're going to have to do a book because there are so many of them now. Let's see what else we got here. I'm going to wrap this up in just a minute because it's almost 6 o'clock and I've got friends here coming for dinner. I mean, for distance dinner, I won't actually see them except with binoculars. Let's see. Okay, somebody's asking, is there a circumstance where Clearview AI or facial recognition can have a benefit versus instead of being invasion of individual privacy? I haven't seen it yet. There's a structural problem with both AI and facial recognition right now. That the people who created, because of this notion of minimum viable products in the sense that they weren't accountable for harm, made no attempt to eliminate bias based on either gender, race, or age. And so these systems tend to work well on white people and less white males and less well on everybody else. And in the hands of law enforcement, the failure rates have been very high, and the result is people have gone to jail based on misidentification. Do not let anybody fool you. There is no reason based on what happened this week in this insurrection for wholesale adoption of any new surveillance thing. The intelligence failure here was not based on lack of data. It was based on not paying attention to tons of data we had. Now, there's some consumers, investigators who've been identifying the perpetrators using Clearview and things like that. And again, I would rather have Clearview made illegal, shut down, and all those people sent to jail. If incidentally we get a benefit from time to time, great, but it's not worth it. All of these things, I mean, people have to have some level of sanctuary. They have to be able to live their lives without being spied on all the time. I've spent 4 years trying to talk about this, and many of you have heard me before, and it's like, this is what I was worried about, and here we are. So we're really going to have to get on board. So I hope this was helpful. If you want to do this again, I'm happy to do it again in the future. But for now, let's just leave it here. I will be on CNN in an hour and a half. Actually, it'll be a little bit more than that. Sometime between 7:30 and 8 o'clock Pacific time, I'll be on CNN. And then this coming week, I'll be on CNN International really early on Monday morning. I think it's in the 6 o'clock hour on the West Coast, 9 o'clock hour on the East Coast. I'll be on MSNBC with Stephanie Rule in the 9 o'clock hour Eastern, 6 o'clock hour on Wednesday. And then I will be on the evening PBS NewsHour also on Wednesday. So, you're going to see way too much of me this coming week, but this is important stuff, and I'm going to do my best to be a constructive force. And I've been trying to guide members of Congress. And the really great thing about this is how much work they've all done. I mean, especially in the House of Representatives. I mean, you should be really proud. Particularly our Bay Area members of Congress have been just epically good. And they've taken the time to learn the topic, and they're going to help to organize good outcomes. And I think we should all be hopeful, and we should all participate in this. And I just want to thank Patrick for putting on this show again. We had some technical difficulties, like the whole system in here isn't working, so I have no PA, no monitor. Hopefully it didn't sound too bad. Anyway, thank you for watching, and Jason will be here tomorrow. We'll have our 300th Duo show on Monday, Quartet Tuesday, and I think we're doing Quartet Tuesday and Thursday. Jason, actually tomorrow. I'm wrong. I think tomorrow we're going to attempt our first full Moon Alice one. So those will be recorded in some cases, and some will be live. I think tomorrow's live, and I don't know who's up, but everybody's doing something. The one to watch, I'm particularly excited about Molo, because John is he's down in LA, so he knows a lot of people that he can see at a distance, and he's just recording stuff like crazy. I don't know what he's going to do. I'm very excited about seeing what Lester and Dylan come up with, because they're really into it too. And the T Sisters have a bunch of stuff. And if you haven't seen, Erica had her baby, and Mommy and Daddy and Baby are doing really, really well. And so that's an amazing addition to the Munoz family. And we expect more because Chloe's 5 months pregnant. So, and if you didn't see it, Rachel announced her engagement, and so the T's have been, shall we say, socially very busy. Anyway, love you all. Thank you very much. Have a good night.